10. Good evening, and welcome to the syracuse.com debate in the Democratic primary for the newly drawn 22nd Congressional District. We're broadcasting live from the National Veterans Resource Center at Syracuse University, and we'd like to thank the S.I. Newhouse School of Public Communications here at SU for partnering with us to bring you this discussion of policies and ideas amongst candidates. I'm Chris Baker, an editor with syracuse.com and the Post-Standard. We'll spend the next hour speaking with the 4 Democrats seeking to represent Central New York in the next Congress. And we'll seek to demonstrate what makes each different in terms of policy and personality. Those candidates are Frances Conole, Sarah Klee Hood, Chol Majok, and Sam Roberts. We'll meet them in a moment. The primary election is Tuesday, August 23rd, and early voting begins Saturday, August 13th. The Democratic primary is open only to voters who are enrolled in the Democratic Party. There is also a Republican primary taking place, open to all registered Republicans in the district. To learn more about your party registration, visit elections.ny.gov. We had hoped to also host a debate between the 2 Republican candidates, Brandon Williams and Steve Wells, but Steve Wells has declined invitations to debate. Instead, we'll have an interview tomorrow at noon with Brandon Williams. You can watch that on syracuse.com or live on our Facebook page. Now, let's meet the candidates. Each will have 90 seconds for an opening statement. We picked out of a hat to determine the order, and Sarah Klee Hood, we will start with you.
Let me start?
Go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you everybody at home for tuning in, and thank you to syracuse.com and Newhouse for hosting this wonderful event tonight. I'm Sarah Klee Hood. Born and raised in Central New York, I stand on the shoulders of my mother and grandmother. I'm the first in my family to earn a college degree, and I've got those student loans to prove it. And I'm running for Congress because as a mother raising 2 young daughters, I'm concerned about the future of our country. I'm concerned that my daughters won't be able to make a choice should they need to. I'm concerned about our environment. I want the next generation to inherit a livable planet. And I'm concerned about gun violence within our schools and our community. But I'm more than just a mom. I'm a veteran. I served as an officer in the Air Force, where I led 140 troops, managed a budget of $25 million, was an air traffic controller, and developed federal policy. I currently work in the climate policy sector for both state and federal agencies. I work with small businesses to create climate technology, and I develop jobs right here in our district. I've been a software engineer program manager, and I'm an elected town councilor. I'm excited to be here tonight, and I can't wait to share my thoughts and my vision for Central New York. I would be honored to earn your support in August, and together we will win in November. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Francis?
Thank you so much, Chris. I want to thank Syracuse University for hosting us tonight in this beautiful facility. I want to thank the Post-Standard for organizing, Chris for moderating, and I'm looking forward to the discussion at such a critical time in our country. You know, Central New York has been my home. It is my home, been my family's home for generations. And I should add that growing up, I delivered both the Post-Standard and Herald-Journal. That's back when we had 2 newspapers. Through what was often 2 to 3 feet of snow, so this is particularly special to be here tonight with the Post-Standard. As we gather tonight, our country and our community faces so many challenges. We have gun violence, threats on our environment, attacks on a woman's right to choose, attacks on our working families. And the ones that we are expecting, that we want to fix it, to address these challenges, what do? They divide us. They tear us apart. They don't show up for discussions or debates. So some might think that's cause to hang our head or despair, or our best days are behind us, but I don't believe that. I've seen what we're made of here in Central New York. I've been with us through the tough times, and I've seen the best of what our country has to offer, the men and women I served with at the Pentagon, on the ground in Iraq, and in our intelligence community. I've spent my life serving our country, fighting for American values both at home and abroad, and confronting serious crises. And I will never stop fighting for the working families here in Central New York. And thank you all so much for joining us this evening at such an important time in our country.
Thank you, Francis. Sam?
Good evening, and thank you, Chris, and Post Standard and Syracuse University for hosting this debate. I come to you seeking your support and your vote on the 23rd. And the thing is that I come with experience. Let me start back. I served in the county legislature, 5 two-year terms. I served in the state assembly. I was elected to my 3rd term. I served as a New York State commissioner of the Office of Temporary and Disability Assistance. And the budget that I set over was just under $6 billion. And I had a staff of 2,000 people across the state. I serviced the whole state, including Onondaga County, Madison County, and Oneida County. So I have 14 years of legislative experience that I bring to the table. And the thing is you know, I come also from a labor background. I worked at General Motors. I'm a tool and die maker. I'm a blue collar person. I've been endorsed by several unions, CSEA, sheet metal workers, IBW, UAW, which I hail from, the SEIU 1199, the operating engineers, and also a realty group called NatPac. So I'm looking forward to going to Washington to serve the people. I've been serving for years, just looking to bring that service and that experience to Washington, D.C., to be your representative.
Thank you, Sam. And Chol.
Thank you, Chris. Hello, everybody. Thank you for having us here. I'm Chol Majok. It is time to elect somebody that represents the story and the struggle of everyday Americans. And that's me. As somebody that was raised by a widower, somebody that was raised on a farm, on a dairy farm, grain farm, as somebody that lived as a refugee and came to this country as an immigrant, as somebody that is a father, that is a husband to my wife of 12 years. It's time to start representing everyday American, and the time is today. Allow me to show you and tell you who I am first. As somebody that have lived in this community, I have over 10 years of government service, worked for 2 New York State senators, worked for a mayor, and currently serving my 2nd term as a city councilor. I'm fighting hard for everyday American here. I've been to foster care, and when I was in foster care, I saw that there's a crumbling housing in this community. And the crumbling housing represents this lack of stability in our community. And it's time to start stabilizing families so that we can start to grow the next generation that continue to promote the strong America that I saw 10,000 miles away. Thank you.
Thank you, Chol. We'll now move on to questions. And due to the large number of candidates, each person will have 1 minute to answer the question, followed by rebuttals at my discretion. We'll start on the topic of health care. And Sarah, the question will go to you first. Would you keep the Affordable Care Act as it is, improve it, or replace it with Medicare for All to provide free government-run health insurance for all Americans?
Thanks, Chris. Since day one, I have been a strong supporter of single-payer universal health care. I received that same care when I was serving the country in the Air Force. And when my daughter needed immediate surgery, we got it without delay, without network issues, without out-of-pocket costs. And it's because of my personal experience that I fundamentally believe when we talk about healthcare solutions, we can talk about intermediary steps, but they always must be towards the goal of universal health care. If we want to refer to it as Medicaid for all, that's fine. I'm on board with anything that ultimately, at the end of the day, recognizes healthcare as a human right and provides a system based in equity that provides vision, dental, mental health, and allows Medicaid to negotiate prescription drug prices. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Francis?
Yeah, no, Chris, especially over the past 2 years, the challenges of the pandemic have really laid bare the challenges, the healthcare challenges we face throughout central New York. It is a tax on middle-class families. It's a tax on working families. And keep in mind what Republicans want to do. Our Republican opponents are on record saying that they want to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. They want to repeal the Affordable Care Act. And so that's what we're up against, central New Yorkers. My plan, what I've called for, is making sure that we strengthen and protect the Affordable Care Act, make sure that we continue to bring down costs and increase access. And then also, I've called for allowing to have an option, a Medicare option that people could buy into, because I trust Central New Yorkers to make their own health care decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Sam?
Yes, I support the Affordable Health Care Act, but the thing is, everyone can't really afford the Affordable Health Care Act, Chris. So we need to move toward the single payer so everyone truly has it. And when I say everyone, I mean everyone. No one should be, denied health care because, we have folks that come, even if you're a tourist and you come here from another country, let alone the folks that live here, they can't get it. But if someone gets sick and they're here, they need to have health care. They need to be able to go to a doctor and get well. Undocumented, everybody should be afforded an opportunity to that. So I think moving to a single payer would be best for everyone, but again, until that comes, we need to support the affordable health care and not have that taken away, which is being threatened. So we just need to make sure that we support that again, so everyone has health care, basic need. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. And Chol?
Chris, as somebody that have lived before without health insurance, I understand the struggle of everyday American. I have lived in foster care. When I was in foster care and I aged out, I struggled a lot, and I could not get a health insurance. I was forced to the point whether do I have to deal with coming back with the bill, or do I have to treat myself? And I had to take my own tooth out because I did not have insurance, and I didn't want to deal with all those bills. As somebody that had no foundation of any family or anybody here in America, I had to take that measure. And the story I'm telling you is a story of everyday American. So whatever plan that put most American first, that is the plan I'm going to fight for.
Is that plan the Affordable Care Act?
Yes.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to a question about climate change.
Do we get to do rebuttals?
Excuse me?
Do we get to do rebuttals?
If there's a direct conflict or somebody brings up an opponent, we will.
Okay.
But I would like to move on to climate change, and Francis will take this next question with you first. Congress is poised to pass the nation's largest climate bill in history, cutting carbon emissions by 40% by 2030 at a cost of $385 billion. Would you vote for that bill? Is it enough, or would you advocate for a larger bill like the Green New Deal?
Well, what I know, Chris, is that the threat of climate change, we're seeing it here in central New York. We're seeing it on our lakes. We're seeing it with the extreme weather patterns. And when it comes, it's going to make previous crises look like child's play. So we are going to need to take action. We're going to need to take bold action. We're not taking it seriously enough. But I'll tell you who does take it seriously is the Pentagon and the Joint Chiefs of Staff. At the Pentagon, they can't ignore science. We took it into account in our planning, in our national security planning. It takes every threat we face and it multiplies it. And so we are going to need to take bold action. I think that what's being passed in Washington right now is a good first step, but we're going to need to continue to do more. And here's the good news for Central New York. Here's the good news for all of us, is it's going to be an opportunity to create good-paying union jobs right here in Central New York.
So as it exists now, would you support a bill like the Green New Deal?
So the Green New Deal is not a bill. The Green New Deal is just a statement and architecture of intent. What we're talking about now is what is going on down in Washington is the piece of legislation that provides tax credits to transition our economy. That's an approach that I support.
Okay, we'll move on to Sam. Same question on climate change.
Yes, I support both. I love the bill that the president just signed because of what it does is creates, opportunity to, bring more jobs here, clean energy, those kind of things. But the Green New Deal is a great opportunity too. Again, the training, the technology that it's going to bring to the table. We need a lot of both. We need help as much as we can get. And if we can get both of them, let's get them. That's where I'm at with this whole thing. We have to reduce our carbon footprint, across the world, not just here in central New York and in this country, but across the world. When you see the floods that are happening and all that, that are happening, we have to take responsibility, and hopefully we do it more sooner than later before it's too late. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Chol.
You know, Chris, the world is burning, and I think it's important for America to recognize its role in getting us there. America consumes much more energy than any other country on earth. And it's time for us to start recognizing that as a country that we have a lot to do with why we are the way we are in terms of climate. Now, in the current bill that has been signed by the president, there's a $27 billion there that is going to my communities. These are the communities where I come from, and I'm excited about that. Now, is that enough? No, it's not enough. But it's so important to recognize the progress we have made. We have to learn as a country, especially in such a polarized space, that we have to learn to take small win. Small win can lead to bigger wins. So I'm excited about that.
So would you support a larger option like the Green New Deal?
Not per se Green New Deal, but coining something that would cater to majority of Americans. Yes, I'll support something like that moving forward.
Thank you. And Sarah.
Great, thank you. So I work in climate policy at both the state and federal level. I do this every day. I work to create the green technology and create jobs right here in our district. But more importantly, let's talk about the environment. $500,000 was dumped into this race by a crypto billionaire. Crypto operations were just banned from China because of their environmental implications, folks. So what I'm trying to say is that $500,000 is flooding this race by a crypto billionaire in order to buy the votes of Central New Yorkers, sway their voice in DC, and buy out my opponent, Francis Conole. And while we're on the topic, let's talk about unions. You don't get to say that you are excited about unions when your firm is GSG is actually the same firm that Amazon used to union bust their latest employees trying to build unions. The hypocrisy is running wild in this race, and it's time that we call truth out.
Thank you. Francis, I'd like to give you 30 seconds to respond. Sarah's referring to a corporate PAC that has put, I think it's $400,000 into this race in advertising money supporting your campaign.
Sure. I want to just start by saying I'm the only candidate on this stage right now who's been endorsed by Sierra Club, who's been endorsed by the League of Conservation Voters. And I earned those endorsements because of my strong position on climate change. And the support that my opponent's talking about, that Sarah's talking about, that was solely focused on supporting candidates who are committed to preparing for the next pandemic. They've supported Democrats across the country, Congresswoman Brown in Ohio, Congressman Richie Torres here in New York, Max Rose here in New York, and it's singularly focused on preparing for the next pandemic.
Thank you. So I would like to jump, we were planning on asking a question about crypto mining, and we'll stay in order here. So this question, we will start with Sam. Mining for cryptocurrency has become a controversial topic in upstate New York because of the public resources and energy that it requires, especially in some areas like the Finger Lakes. Francis, as Sarah mentioned, your campaign has received some money or has been boosted by a cryptocurrency billionaire through a PAC. So I'd like to hear from each of you your thoughts on crypto mining specifically and whether you think it should be banned federally or locally or left to the markets. And Sam, we will start with you.
Yes, thank you. Typically, I'm in support of anything that's going to come and bring jobs, to the community, which I understand that we have some of them operations that are going on right here in Central New York. But my point in what bothers me is at the point where it's going to, again, affect the environment and what the power and the energy that it takes to do that. And again, we're talking about reducing our carbon footprint, and that's definitely increasing it. So I think, we need to, again, look at it and study it more. But at this point, it's hard for me to come out in 100% for that kind of mining situation that's going to put our environment at risk.
Joel, cryptocurrency mining.
Of course, I will agree with Sam in the sense that we are trying to move away from any product that continue to increase our carbon footprint. And this cryptocurrency, although it brings jobs, it doesn't really move us away where we are currently. So what I would support is anything that does not include sending us back to where we are. The earth is heating up pretty quickly and is hotter than ever in the history. And it's time for us to start recognizing that, and it's time for us, especially as Americans, to start investing in area that move us away from heating the world up any further.
Thank you. Sarah?
Thanks, Chris. So I work in the environmental sector, and I believe that crypto operations proof of work concept should be managed and regulated at the federal level. We do not have regulations, and we need to fully understand the environmental impact implications to not only the local environments, but the future energy consumption. Now back to the money at hand here. We'll go with yours. $400,000 has been funneled into this race in support of Francis Conole. His opinion has been bought and sold. His voice has been bought and sold. Who is going to represent the future generations of Central New York as we face climate change, knowing that when he were to be elected, his opinion's already been bought and sold?
Well, no, listen, on this issue of crypto, I completely agree with my colleague Sarah on this. I think it absolutely.
Thank you for the endorsement.
I think it absolutely needs to be regulated at the federal level. I support the White House's and President Biden's executive order, which called for a whole of government strategy to look at crypto, to examine the impact on financial markets, the impact on consumers, and the impact on our environment. So I absolutely agree. I think we need to take a hard look at this. I think it needs to be regulated at the federal level. I think we need to pass the Securities Clarity Act, which will help provide some of that regulation and stability.
All right, let's move on. I'd like to talk about gun control. And Chol, this question will go to you first. Mass shootings continue to plague this country in addition to all other sorts of gun violence. Do you support a ban on assault weapons? And would such a ban go too far or not far enough?
So last year, we lost 42,222 lives in gun-related death. And it's time, as a first world country, to start really scrutinize gun. As somebody that has seen the ugly side of gun, as somebody that grew up through Civil War and have seen what AK-47 can do, I think it's time for America to start putting people first and putting guns second. And it's time to regulate that. We got to ban in civilian life semi-automatic rifle. They got to go.
Okay, thank you. Sarah?
Great, thank you. First and foremost, I'm not looking to take away anybody's Second Amendment right. I grew up in a house where my father was an avid hunter. I have been modeled to learn what safe and responsible gun ownership looks like. In the military, I handled M9s and M16s. However, in my current position, I'm a mother, and every time we have a gun violent incident, either in the community or at a school, I'm fearful that that might be the moment that it trips off somebody in our community and that I may never see my children again. And so I do support an automatic rifle ban. I'm not looking to take away anybody's Second Amendment rights. I may try to slow the process down and ensure that we are having responsible gun ownership here in our community and for our country. Thank you.
Thank you. Francis?
Yeah, Chris, I think it's important. Take a look at the data. After the assault weapons ban was expired, take a look at the mass shootings. It goes up exponentially. And so this is a tragedy. We have our young kids in our schools now who have to go through lockdown drills. This is a tragedy for our country. And I think we have to remember that AR-15 actually preceded the M16. Colt developed that weapon. It's very similar, almost no different than the weapon that I took with me over to Iraq. It is a weapon of war. It's a weapon of combat, and civilians do not need this weapon. I support Second Amendment rights, but I also support an assault weapons ban.
Thank you. And Sam?
Yes. When I was a member of the New York State Assembly, we passed, and I voted for the SAFE Act, the New York SAFE Act, which is one of the first gun control legislations that was passed in this country. It basically took it down to you couldn't have a fully automatic rifle or a pistol as well. Because of the expanded clips, we reduced it down to 30, to 15, down to 7 bullets is all you could have, 7 rounds you could have in a clip. It was against the law unless you were law enforcement, and then you could have more. I support the Second Amendment rights, but we don't need a fully automatic or AR-15, 16, whatever it is, a MAC-10. You know, we don't need that to hunt. We don't need that in our homes to protect ourselves. And we need safety. We need folks to be responsible for their guns, for to lock them up, to make sure that they're safe and keep them out of the hands of our children and out of people who should not have access to them.
Thank you. We'll move on to a question about Roe v. Wade. And Sarah, we will start with you on this question. The Supreme Court decided earlier this year that a woman's right to an abortion should not be federally protected. Instead, the court said that decision should be left with the states. New York, a blue state, has moved to protect those rights. What's the best way for Congress to respond to the Supreme Court's overturning of Roe v. Wade?
Well, as the only candidate here tonight whose rights have been stripped away, we need to expand the court. Point blank. 4 justices is it. It's based in historical context, and it will align us to the number of circuit courts that we have in the U.S. However, let's be realistic. I am raising 2 daughters here. My grandmother fought, my mother fought, and now I'm fighting. I do not want them fighting this fight. We need to codify Roe, and we need to expand the courts if we truly want to see a society here in America that is based in equity, where nobody, regardless of what they look like, is treated like a second-class citizen. Thank you.
Thank you. Just so I'm clear, expand the court by adding 4 more justices?
4 more justices, yes.
Okay, thank you. Francis?
Yeah, no, this has been an incredible attack on women's rights. It's been an attack on human rights. What the courts did was extreme. They overturned 50 years of precedents. It was a super precedent reaffirmed in 1992. It's an attack on our country's values. It's an attack on women's rights and human rights. And so Congress absolutely needs to take action. We need to codify Roe into federal law at the federal level. And let's keep in mind, whoever the Republican nominee is, that Republican nominee will be joining a caucus. 165 Republicans have already signed on to the Life at Conception Act. That would be a national ban on abortion with no exceptions of race or incest across the entire country. So that is what we are up against right now.
Thank you, Francis. Sam?
Yes, her body, her choice. But we have to have reproductive rights in the hands of women. We can't take that. We have to restore that. I will go to Congress and do everything that I could to overturn and set a new law, make it a law that the court, conservative right-wing court that was all appointed, most of the appointments were made by presidents who weren't even elected by the majority of the people of the United States. Even one that got there by the Chad, the hanging Chad. So anyways, the thing is to get there, to overturn that, and to protect that. And again, they've come after that, they're coming after other rights as well. So we have to, that's a whole nother discussion about the Supreme Court. So, but I support a woman's right to choose.
Thank you. And Chol?
As somebody that has been married to his wife of 12 years, my wife has been the best thing that has happened to me in my adult life. And I could have never not asked for a better role model for my daughters than what I have in my house. So I'm saying that to say my wife's way of making decisions, just like any other woman here in America, should be respected. Should be respected. This abortion should be left to women to decide that. Now, here's what I'm going to add to that, Chris. I agree with Francis. We should codify Roe versus Wade. Yes, I want to go a step further. We should introduce term limit. These justices are married to this seat and is undemocratic.
All right, so I'd like just a really quick follow-up, just a yes or no answer. We heard from Sarah you would support expanding the court. I'd like to hear from each of the other candidates, just yes or no. Would you support expanding the Supreme Court? Francis?
I would.
Sam?
Yes.
Chol?
I wouldn't.
No. Okay. Thank you. Next question, I'd like to talk about bipartisanship And this question, we will start with Francis. Central New York has a long history of electing moderate congressional leaders who fancy themselves as bipartisans and moderates, including longtime Congressman Jim Walsh and the outgoing Representative John Katko. If you were elected, how would you find ways to work with Republicans in Congress? And what experience in your life shows that you're capable of that?
Well, listen, I've been doing it really throughout my career on the ground in Iraq, in our intelligence community, at the Pentagon, at the senior levels, advising a cabinet level official. When you're in the military, you don't ask if someone is a Democrat and Republican or a Republican. And here's what I do. The first thing is you start by building relationships. You start with those common values and you build trust. The next thing is you have to define the problem. We used to have a sign in our office at the Pentagon that quoted Einstein: if I had 1 hour to save the world, I'd spend 59 minutes defining the problem. Define the problem, define the problem, and then seek areas where you can work together, come together. You can't stand always in a maximalist position. You have to come together, and I'll work with anyone to address the concerns here in Central New York, to bring jobs, to protect Social Security and Medicare, to protect a woman's right to choose, and to deliver for our working families.
Thank you. Sam.
Yes. As a member of the county legislature, I worked across the aisle on everything we had to do to get done, because I was a minority in the minority party. And to that attribute, I was appointed a chairmanship of a committee in that county legislature, which didn't happen much by a Republican leader. And the thing is, I always know that if you put the people first and you do the people's bidding and the people's work, it's very hard for anybody to say no. We got things done to the point where some of my colleagues used to come to me and say, here, why don't you take this and put your name on this bill? Maybe we can get it passed. So I had a very good relationship, and again, it's about relationships. Even when I was in the state assembly, the same thing. It's about getting things done. It's about the people's work. It's not about Republican, Democrat. It's crossing those aisles and getting things done.
Thank you. Chol.
Yes, so as my first job in the New York State Senate was with a Republican. I was there, came up and worked for a Democrat here and continue to be a Democrat. So I know how to work with Republicans. Second to that, when you go to Washington, D.C. and you see all these congressional folks, there's a lot of handshake going on. There's a lot of people that are married to these seats. They don't care about ordinary people. A lot of these people are married to their seat. What we need to do is elect people that are not attached to this institution and put them into the offices. Third to that, we gotta learn to put people in there that know how to do business. People that would not look at people as Republican versus Democrat. People that put American first. Those are the people we need to elect.
Thank you. Sarah.
Thank you. Similar to Francis, while serving in the military, you naturally have a sense of service before country, service before self. Folks from across this great nation come together with their different values or different ideologies. You're able to set those aside in order to get the job done. I think that's what bipartisanship means to me. However, I think one crucial piece of this pie that we're not addressing is the fact that we have some folks on the other side of the aisle that simply do not have American citizens' best interests at heart. And when it comes to folks that are unwilling to bend or come together for their radical ideologies, I'm simply not willing to sacrifice my values or the representation of Central New York in order to get the job done, simply because that's how you do it. I think it's important that you understand you're serving the people, and that if you have folks on the other side of the aisle that aren't willing to come together, you need to move forward and serve the people. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to take a break from the more serious questions here and dive into a little more fast-paced lightning round. I'm going to ask you questions, and I'll ask each of you to give me a one-word or as short of a phrase answer as possible. We're going to go right down the line. We've got 8 or 9 of these. Francis, we will start with you. Yes or no, should Joe Biden run for president again?
That's going to be a decision he's going to have to make.
Sam?
No opinion.
Chol?
He can run. He's an American. Let him run.
Sarah?
It's up to President Biden what he chooses to do.
All right, now we'll get into the one-word answers. Who has the best pizza in town? Sam, we'll start with you.
Trappers.
Swallows.
Mario and Salvo.
Twin Trees.
Yes or no, do you support the aquarium? Chol.
I do not.
Sarah.
No, it's a failure of federal policy.
Francis.
No. I
No.
don't.
And Sam?
From a community standpoint, no. For jobs, yes.
Much more than one word. What is your favorite thing to do at the New York State Fair? Sarah.
Fried Oreos.
Francis.
Fried dough.
Sam.
Waffles covered with blueberries.
Chol.
Chicken wings.
I think we're back to Francis. What was the first job you ever held?
Delivering newspapers.
Sam.
Paperboy.
Joel.
Cleaning offices.
Sarah.
I was a cashier at Kinney Drugs in Bridgeport.
What is your favorite local festival? Sam.
The fair.
Joel.
War Refugee Day.
Sarah.
Lafayette Apple Fest.
Francis.
Irish Festival at St. Patrick's.
Chol, I think we're back to you. Should the Columbus statue come down?
Yes.
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 It should not be destroyed, but it should be removed.
What current or former congressperson do you view as a role model? Sarah.
Katie Porter.
Melissa Slotkin.
It's hard to say. I'll give Dan Maffei a shot.
Joel.
Currently, I got quite a number of them, Chris.
Well, this
Let's
is a
see.
lightning round, so let's pick one.
I'm going to be held accountable for this.
All
Let's
right,
go. Let's go with Akeem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Last one. Should there be term limits in Congress? Francis.
Yes.
Sam.
Yes.
Joel.
Absolutely.
And Sarah.
Yes.
All right. We'll get back to some more serious questions. I've lost my order, but Chol, I think we're starting this next one with you. We're going to talk about inflation. One of the top issues right now for many voters is inflation. Skyrocketing prices, making it more expensive to buy groceries or to put gas in the tank. The recently passed Inflation Reduction Act does a lot to address inflation in the long term, but not much to address inflation in the short term. What more could or should Congress do to help?
Well, that's me, right?
Yes, Chol.
Okay. Well, in this community, when you go to local neighborhoods, you see that lack of housing is a big problem. And that just throw everything out of the window, because now you see corporate landlords jacking up prices because there's a problem of supply in our community. So we got to make more to invest in housing, fix housing, promote home ownership, and making sure that Americans are living in a safe and affordable environment.
Thank you. Sarah, inflation.
As a mother to 2 young children, I am driving around town all week. Let's add on a congressional district to that. I'm at the gas pump at least once a week. The costs are high, I get it. The cost of living is challenging here for many Americans. And we need to address the fact that we don't have very many social nets here in place. And that is why I support single-payer universal health care, income-driven child care, paid family medical leave, and access to free college and trades. Because when we take care of the home life, we are truly allowing our community members to then go into the economy, find a job, and move their family forward, both professionally and at the home. Since day one, I believe that we need to start lifting the bottom so that we can grow the middle. And I believe that through these efforts, we will be able to contribute both to the society, both to the community and the economy. Thank you.
Thank you. Francis.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is an issue where Washington politicians are just moving too slow and taking their sweet-ass time to address these concerns. It's really hurting working families here in central New York. I released a plan on this in January. I think there's parts of the Inflation Reduction Act that will address rising costs and affordability. I think that the measures to reduce the cost of prescription drugs is going to be really important. I like the way it addresses the debt and deficit as well, and it focuses on energy costs as well. But other areas that I called for, I think we need true middle-class tax cuts. Middle class is hurting. I also called for a temporary lift of the gas tax at the federal level, and that is something that has not happened yet. We've done it here at the state level. Our leadership in Albany has done it at the state level. I think it needs to happen at the federal level.
How long would that last?
I think it's going to last I'd like to see gas go below $4 a gallon.
Okay.
I think that would be good.
Thank you. Sam?
Yes, we have to drop prices. We have to drive prices down, including the interest rates that have been climbing to, take care of inflation. But we need to bring that down. I like what they were talking about as far as drugs and the prescription drugs and, again, forcing those prices down, giving rebates back to people, to afford better drugs, and then keep folks living. We need to bring jobs back. That's going to be big, so people can afford to buy whatever they need to buy, whether it be a home, a car, gas. You're talking about $4 prices. I remember as a kid going, and it used to be 50 cents. Give me $2 almost fill your car up. I would love to see it go back then, but I don't think we're going to go back that far. But we have to keep pushing and again, just not settle for anything.
Thank you all.
Really well.
Yes, I was remembering where the next question starts, and I believe it starts with you, Sarah. We're
Great.
going to talk about education. President Biden is expected to decide soon whether to enact his promised student loan forgiveness of $10,000 per person. But some progressives want $50,000 of college debt canceled. What should Biden do, and how should it be paid for?
As a first-generation college degree earner, I have those student debts. I have student loans, and I can tell you that the interest rates have gone up year over year. I think for first action, let's start with that campaign promise. $10,000 would be a great start, but for many, it's not even a dent in the bucket. It's not even a drop in the bucket. I think we need to really look at reinvesting back into our. We need to restructure the student loan programs. I have been paying, my balance hasn't gone below the original balance thanks to the interest that it's accrued. I would suggest that we take all interest paid on student loans and redeposit that back into the balance, and let's start at a 2 to 3% interest rate for most student loans. I think that there are a lot of parents out there that are seeing their adult children delayed in traditional life cycle events, buying a house, getting married, going on a vacation, because they are strapped with student loan debt. We are delaying our economic rise because we are keeping people out of the workforce.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Francis?
Yeah, listen, I agree. This is something, the whole system is broken and needs to be reformed. It's something that right now there's over $1.5 trillion in student loan debt. It not only plagues our young people, it's a drag and plagues our entire economy. So this is a crisis that we need to take on. We talk about this on our policy platforms. The areas that I would really like to see us focus on is one, as we reform the system, looking to get to debt-free community college, I think would be outstanding. I also think we do need to really increase the value of Pell Grants. When Pell Grants first came online in the 1970s, they were covering about 70% of the cost of higher education. It's down to about 30%. And I'm also a big proponent as well of national service programs. It's something that I was able to take advantage of after serving overseas, using the GI Bill to go back to school and get a graduate degree. And I think that's something that we need to expand into other areas like teaching, like our healthcare professionals. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
That sounds like my platform. Thank you.
Sam?
Yes. I remember my first student loan, actually my only student loan I took. I remember my friends talking about the nightmares of student loans and paying them back. And it was when I got my bills, and I would pay the bills. And then at the end of the year, I looked and it's like, well, wait a minute, hold on, I've been paying on this all year, but yet it didn't go down. And then I saw the interest was crazy and how they applied it. So I got rid of it real quick. But we need to support that, the debt. We need to help. I got a call from a woman about 3 months ago, talking about forgiveness and who would get it, and talk about frontline workers, with the pandemic, that they should be given preference. And, again, we have to work through who's available, who can get it, who can't. But yes or no, we have to give folks assistance because it's killing people. Folks are paying hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loans, and they just can't afford it.
Thank you, Sam. And Chol.
So education is becoming a thing for privileged people because folks like us who are struggling Americans can no longer afford education. And as somebody that came as a refugee, I have tons of student loan. And it is a story of every immigrant and every refugee out there, including struggling Americans. It's time to do something about it. Second to that, because student loans, education is so expensive and the cost it takes, America is behind education-wise. When you look at the level of educated people in America compared to the rest of the world, America is no longer number one in education. And part of that is we need to do something about the expensiveness of education. We need to transform that. We need to promote free education so that we continue to be competitive in the world.
Thank you. We'll move on. This next question, we'll start with Francis. Some Democrats, like Bernie Sanders, view the CHIPS bill approved by Congress last month as a $52 billion giveaway to corporate interests in the semiconductor industry. But Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, a Democrat, and John Katko, a Republican, voted for the bill because they say it could lure a mammoth chip plant to Onondaga County. What's your view? A corporate giveaway or a necessary incentive, and how would you have voted?
I would have voted for it. I think it's an absolutely necessary incentive. It's not only an incredible opportunity for us here in central New York, it's a matter really of national security. If we've learned anything over the past few years, it's that we need to start making things at home here. We cannot continue to cede and give all of the development of these semiconductor chips to China. Part of the strategy right now for China is to invest, align, and compete, and that invest component is dealing with reconstituting our national production, and it's an incredible opportunity here for central New York. I've heard the numbers. If this production facility does come here, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 jobs, that's going to be really important for us. So I'm excited about it, and I agree with Senator Schumer.
Thank you. Sam.
Yes, when I was a member of the State Assembly, Senator Schumer came to Central New York, and we met out at the old General Electric plant, and they had buildings out there, and we went in and we were talking about bringing a chip plant back then. So, and again, the thing is the jobs, bringing them back. Hopefully we get them here in Central New York. But the main thing is we got to get jobs back in this country. It's not just about Central New York, it's about America. So that's one thing. And then when I read today about the bill, and they were talking about how the Chinese were here lobbying against us voting on that because it's going to take jobs away from them. And then my thing is, chips, and we're sending out and getting them. How do we know that they're not building a back door into our computers through those chips? So we need to bring it back home, keep it here in America.
Thank you. Chol.
So it's important that we have more jobs than there are people because that gives people an option to move around and feed themselves. So I would have voted for this bill as well. And here in Central New York, as somebody that has been through workforce development, there are not enough jobs that pay people living wages. So having more of them here increase competition, and with that competition from the employers, give people, regular people like ourselves, a chance to feed their families.
Thank you. Sarah.
I do support the CHIPS Act and the potential jobs that it could bring here to Central New York. I'm not a fan of potential tax incentives. I think we've seen that once they run their course, corporations find other places to house their markets. So I would love to see a company stay beyond whatever incentives they may receive. And similar to every other industry, I would expect an environmental impact study to be conducted prior to any development that might be within the chip manufacturing market. Similarly, If we are going to be bringing in all of these new jobs, I would expect adequate look into ensure that we have affordable housing, adequate public transportation, and we need to increase our daycare opportunities to ensure that the new employees, the folks that we are training here and attracting here, are able to settle and live here and grow their family here.
Thank you. We'll start this next question with you, Sam, and it's a question about poverty in Syracuse, which, as we all know, is an out-of-control problem. About half of Syracuse's children have been living below the poverty line for years. If elected, how would you use your position in Congress to address child poverty? And on a broader scale, what would you do to reduce the city's chronic poverty problem?
As a commissioner of the Office of Temporary Disability Assistance, that was one of my biggest assignments from the state. And that was I traveled across the state, worked with the United Way. We had an anti-poverty program, and it was working through that to make sure we got monies into the communities. And basically, we were looking at each of the communities, but we're talking Central New York, but to get them millions of dollars into working out how we would deal with that. And it's about money. It's about funding. And it's about bringing funds back to this community. And that's how you end poverty. The thing is, it's about jobs. And again, you give them a hand up versus a handout. You know, people need help, and we have to have jobs, good paying jobs. That's why we need businesses, as many as we can get, whatever we can get. We have to support our family farmers to keep them out of that and to keep them going, because they supply food, nutritional meals and stuff like that. We need to support that.
Thank you. Chol.
So we need to stabilize families. As somebody that came through a community where families were stable, I went through poverty, but I couldn't recognize poverty because there was stability around. And what's going on in our community is families are falling apart for various reasons. One of them being that there's no stable environment to raise children. One of those is housing in this community. We are tearing down houses, whether here in the urban community or you go to rural America. More houses are coming down, and there's not enough going in to renovate them. How about we build more houses, incentivize home ownership so more people can own home and stay in home and raise children that are stable, and to continue to strengthen this community. Children depend on parents, and good parents mean that if we need to invest in those parents so that we continue to produce children that are strong and continue to do better for our country. That's how you challenge poverty, stabilize families.
Thank you. Sarah?
Thank you. I said it before, and I'll reiterate it. We are lacking social networks, basic social networks that will help to lift our community. We need to invest in single-payer universal health care, income-driven child care. This is not facility set rates. It is based on your annual income, and you pay what you are able to afford. And at that point, I recognize that the child care system is broken, so the small business owners out there, I have not forgotten you. We need to give paid family medical leave, and we need to invest in free college and trades and increase access to job stability. And when we talk about poverty, you can't simply talk about poverty as a wealth equity situation. We need to invest in public transportation opportunities, truly attack the lead situation that we have here in Central New York, and address the quality and the cost of living here in Central New York. Until we're ready to acknowledge the fact that we have been overlooking certain segments of our population, we will not be able to rise above.
Thank you. Francis?
Yeah, Chris, you know, we launched our campaign in front of the house where my mother was born in on the near west side on Merriman Ave. When she was born, that was a middle-class neighborhood, and it's now one of the poorest in the nation. So this is something that is plaguing our communities here, and it's a complex problem, but there are things that Congress could really do immediately. Congress could pass that enhanced child income tax credit immediately, and it could have an immediate impact. It had an immediate impact during the pandemic. It estimated to have lifted 40% of children living in poverty out of poverty. But there's a lot more that we're going to have to do. We're going to have to invest in our schools. I'd like us to invest in a community school model that really integrates social services and the academics, enhances the ability to deliver meals on weekends during the summer. And then the other kind of critical component of this is just the crux of what we should be talking about tonight is building economic opportunity. And that stretches the low income, poverty all throughout the middle class.
Thank you.
And we really need to do that.
Thank you. We are just about out of time for our Q&A portion of tonight's debate, but I'd like to give each candidate 1 minute to make a closing statement before we say farewell here. Chol, we will start with you.
So as I said earlier, it is time to elect somebody that reflects the lived experience and the struggle of everyday Americans. As somebody that came here as a refugee, somebody that have lived an orphan, who was raised by a widower, as somebody that have lived on a farm, dairy farming, grain farming, I see myself as somebody that everyday American can relate to. And it's important that we put people into offices that will encourage democracy, encourage strength to want to keep going. As somebody that came from another country and came to this nation, I love this nation. This nation has given me a second chance in life. I would like to see other Americans see that and achieve that. People who struggle, who come across the world and come here and they run into difficulty and they are hopeless. I would like to promote hope, that there's hope in America through my lived experience. I came here, I'm a father, I have a doctorate in executive leadership, opportunity. This is American dream, and I would like everyone to have it.
Thank you, Chol. Sam.
Yes. Again, I just want to thank everybody for tuning in and watching us and putting up with us. As you heard through this debate, we all are similar. We all agree on the basic values, the democratic values that make us Democrats. The thing that sets me apart is my experience. I have compassion. I've been here, I've been around. I'm not a career politician. As I said, I retired from General Motors. I had 30 years. I'm a blue collar guy. Have a strong union and labor background. My parents we came from Carrier Corporation. My mother was at General Electric. I just had those values instilled in me. But the main thing, again, like I said, is my experience that I bring. 14 years of actual legislative experience, unparalleled, unequaled. So I'm asking you for your support on this election.
Thank you, Sam. Francis.
Yeah, I just want to thank Post Standard again. Thank you, Chris, for joining us. This was wonderful. It's been an honor to share this evening with all of you and to share this stage with three great Americans. Central New Yorkers, we face a clear choice in this election. There are those who want to divide us, those who attack our capital, those who want to bring AR-15s to public places, those who want to reward corporations for shipping jobs overseas, who want to take the rights away from women. It's time to end this cycle of chaos. Americans are exhausted. We don't want the extremes. We want our neighbors back. We began this campaign with a simple message, that especially now, as our country grapples with a multitude of crises, both at home and abroad, we need serious leadership and serious representation to meet this moment. And I've been serving my entire life, leading in crises, and I'll never stop fighting for the hardworking people of Central New York. And thank you so much for joining tonight.
Thank you. And Sarah.
Thanks again, Chris, and to everybody else Zooming in, or I guess Facebooking in, thank you for joining us tonight. It's been a pleasure to be here. I think when you look at all the candidates on stage, we can all agree we have unique perspectives, we have different backgrounds. Most of us work here, most of us are living here, and most of us are elected here. So what separates me is the fact that I'm already doing the work that's necessary and needed for Central New Yorkers. I work in job development. I'm addressing climate change. And if you have questions surrounding the crypto conversation tonight, please head over to sarahkleehoodny.com/crypto. We've outlined a few articles that gives you the background and why we are talking about how this race is trying to be bought and sold, and how we are how a certain candidate and his funders are trying to silence the voice of Central New Yorkers. It is imperative that Central New Yorkers show out and show the rest of the nation and Wichita, Kansas, what true voter turnout looks like on August 23rd. I look forward to earning your support, and together we'll win in November. Thank you.
Thank you all, and that will do it for tonight's debate. For ongoing coverage of this primary and to see results as they come in on election night, please keep up with syracuse.com and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Once again, the primary election is Tuesday, August 23rd, and early voting begins this Saturday, August 13th. This primary is open to all Democrats registered in this district. There's also a Republican primary for all registered Republicans. On behalf of syracuse.com and the Newhouse School here at Syracuse University, I'd like to thank the candidates for spending this time with us tonight and for engaging in a thoughtful discussion of ideas.
Thank you.
Join us tomorrow for an interview with Republican Brandon Williams in lieu of a Republican debate. Again, thank you for watching, and please remember to get out and vote.
Thank you.
Thank you, brother.